guys, it's Ilana and welcome back to my channel. So this is what dating in San Francisco has taught me, the update. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. A couple of years ago, I posted a video called What Dating in San Francisco Has Taught Me, and that is one of my most viewed videos on this channel. So I thought I would go ahead and do an update to that video since there are more things that I have learned, more time has passed within the past 2 years. So I figured I'd go ahead, spill the tea of more things to know about dating in San Francisco and what it's taught me about dating. So without further ado, let's get into this video. If you haven't seen that video from 2 years ago, I wanted to kind of recap of some of the things that I've learned overall about the Bay Area and what dating is like. The first thing being that people are absolute workaholics. People will flake and ghost all of the time. People only want to date proximity of their city, so San Francisco people are going to be more open to only dating within San Francisco. So if you live in the South Bay or the East Bay, it's going to make it a lot harder for you to date someone in a different city. People will offer to grab drinks with you for the first date, and I find that to be hella lame. Just know you can always offer another option, but most people usually want to grab drinks for the first date. So I wanted to add one more thing onto that list, and that is how Peter Pan syndrome is so real in this city. I feel like people do not want to grow up, they want to stay young forever. So a lot of people aren't really ready for commitment, they don't want to get into anything serious. They aren't really thinking about starting a family of their own and settling down, getting married, all of that good stuff. And it's beyond frustrating for those who do want to find love in this city, who do want to get into a serious relationship, and it seems, or it feels like a lot of people aren't really emotionally available for something serious. So that is the last thing that I wanted to add on to this list. I know my last video was about 22 minutes long, and honestly this video will probably be just as long because I got a lot to talk about. So let's jump into the next couple of guys and pick back where we left off in 2018. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I post content about what it's like to live in San Francisco. So please go ahead and do that. Okay, let's get on to guy number one. This guy was Irish. I matched with him on Hinge and we had a very good conversation. I was really excited to meet him in person. So for our first date, we grabbed drinks at this really cute bar in Hayes Valley called Ilana. And when I first met him, he was actually very disappointing. So basically he was very negative throughout the whole day. He kept saying how he didn't like this, how he didn't like that, and just overall he gave off a ton of abrasive vibes, and that's not really what I'm going for. I don't want to date someone who's arrogant and abrasive. That's just not my cup of tea. I don't know if that's an Irish thing, so it could be a culture barrier, but let me tell you, that is a part of your culture that I absolutely will not tolerate or accept. Abrasiveness and arrogance has no part in my dating world, and I don't want my partner to be like that. So again, if you're Irish, let me know, is that kind of common within the Irish community, or was that just him? Let me know down below. I'd love to know your thoughts. But basically, the biggest takeaway that I learned from this is that, well, you will instantly know when you're immediately turned off by someone, and you will know if you never want to see them ever again. So both of us mutually opted out from seeing one another, and that means that both me nor he contacted one another after that first date, so we never heard from each other again after that. People kind of confuse that with ghosting, but that's actually not what ghosting is. So if they don't contact you and you don't contact them ever again, it's called a mutual opt-out. So yeah, that's basically the biggest thing I learned is I immediately knew what turns me off on a first date. So the next guy that I met was a guy who had just moved to San Francisco from Italy. I was like, okay, international guy round 2, let's go. He was very attractive. I remember I matched with him on the League at the time. So basically our first date was we were going to go to the Tenderloin first to grab some dinner. We went to this interesting little diner, very hole in the wall, but the food was really good. And then we walked over to the tongue room at the Fairmont Hotel in Nob Hill. We had a really good time. We grabbed drinks there, we listened to some live music. It was a really fun date. but I just didn't really feel a connection with him. It just kind of felt like I was hanging out with a friend as opposed to someone who could potentially be my romantic partner, and that was a shame because he was very nice, he was very attractive, but I just didn't feel a strong connection with him, and there ended up being a mutual opt-out after that, but it's okay, at least I had a good time that night. So the biggest thing that I learned is sometimes first dates will be one and dones, and they're just meant to be fun nights out, and that's okay. That is part of dating. Part of dating is to have fun and to kind of go with the flow and to see where it will go. But of course, you still want to make sure y'all's intentions are lined up with one another. So that was literally the second guy and what I learned. So the third guy. So this is a little bit more of a story. So I matched with him on Hinge, and I remember our first date was on a Tuesday night, and we went to a wine bar out in Soma, really close to where he lives actually. So this guy was telling me how he's a startup founder and he has his own company, something in the fashion field. To be honest, I kind of forgot what his company did, but I know it involved fashion. So it's pretty cool that I could actually talk about clothes and fashion with a guy. That was pretty refreshing, not gonna lie. We definitely hit it off on our first date, and we actually ended up going back to his place to have more wine, and we just chit-chatted. And he had told me that he had actually just gotten out of a serious relationship, so I was immediately thinking to myself, okay, this is absolutely gonna go nowhere. He just got out of a relationship, but I kind of want to sleep with him though. But I didn't sleep with him on the first date. But we did make plans to go on a second date, which happened to be the Tonga Room, because let me tell you, I have a problem. I love the Tonga Room. It's such a great place to go for a date and grab drinks. So we agreed to that, and then he walked me back downstairs when I was ready to leave, and then we ended up making out, and I was thinking, okay, this is definitely going to get me laid on the second date. I just know it. If we rewind to 2 years ago, do you remember in my previous video where I was wearing that red jumpsuit where I was 27 pounds overweight, had an unflattering choice of a hair color? And my lipstick color changed in that video. So let me explain, because it ties into this guy. So we scheduled that date on a Friday night. And after I had finished getting ready, so what you saw me wearing was the red jumpsuit and all the deep smoky eye makeup. That was for that date. And I had finished getting ready, so I had enough time to sit down and film that video. And after I had finished filming that video, I got a text from him an hour before we were supposed to meet up, and he says he's stuck at work and he can't make it. He wants to reschedule for the next day. So I was just thinking to myself, but I just got ready! So I'm thinking, okay, sure, I appreciate you wanting to immediately make it up for the next day. No big deal, that works for me. Cool, right? So, as you see in the middle of that video, my lipstick color changed from nude to this brighter pink color, and that part where my lipstick was pink was part of the video that never got filmed. So I went back the next day, did my hair and makeup the exact same way, but forgot what color lipstick I was wearing, and I refilmed that part again. Anyway, that just explains the lipstick change. So the day that I'm wearing that pink lipstick is when we actually had the date. So we meet each other at the Tonga Room, and we were only there for, I want to say, maybe 45 minutes. We kind of got bored because it was a really dead night, and then we migrated over to the View Lounge, which is this really awesome penthouse hotel bar in Soma. It's awesome. It's got a incredible view. You gotta check it out. It was a very intimate setting. I just kind of felt the sexual tension between us that night, and then we left and we went back to his place and I slept with him. No shame. And I also discovered that I wasn't sexually compatible with him at all. So after that night, I never heard from him ever again, and to be honest, I didn't really care to talk to him ever again. He was very nice, but I just didn't really feel that strong of a connection with him. And I kind of used him for sex. Not really proud of that one, but I think the biggest takeaway from this guy was that I learned that sometimes your dates are just going to be nothing but sexual, and that's okay. That is part of navigating the dating world while being single, is to have sex with people and to figure out what you like and what you don't like. It's okay to sleep with other people when you are single. That was just kind of what came out of this relationship. Some people are just meant for sexual partners, and that's okay. Cool, let's move on. So the next two guys that I'm gonna get into, because they were basically back to back. So this first guy was the last guy that I dated in 2018. I already mentioned him in my Guys That I've Hurt video, which you can go ahead and watch after this video right up here. I'm not gonna go in depth with that story, but long story short, I matched with him on Hinge, we got coffee, I didn't feel a connection, he reached out to me again to hang out, and I turned him down. That's all you really need to know. The biggest thing that I learned from this is that if you don't feel it on the first date, just tell the person that you're not interested in seeing them again. It's not that hard. Don't just ghost them or mutually opt out. Just be upfront and move on. And then with the other guy, this was the first guy that I dated in 2019. I didn't go on a date with him until July because 2019 I was taking a really long dating break. I was so burnt out from all the men that I dated in 2018. So he was another guy that I mentioned in my Guys That I Hurt video. I also matched with him on Hinge. We grabbed coffee. I didn't really feel a spark, decided to give it a second chance, still didn't feel anything, and then I sent him a text message the next day saying I wasn't interested anymore. So the biggest thing that you need to know is if you do not feel it with somebody after the first date, do not go on a second date with them, because there's no point in putting yourself in misery and also hurting the person in the process when they may be excited about you. You need to immediately let them know that you didn't feel a connection after the first date. So you do not let this other person try to set up a second date with you. So that is what I learned, and I hope that's something that you can take away from that experience as well. This guy, I will never forget this guy. So this is the data engineer that I went out with. So I matched with him on Hinge. I remember he made the first move on me, and he commented on one of my pictures saying, "I love me a Kentucky Wildcat." And I was going through his profile, and I was definitely interested because he also went to the University of Kentucky, just like me, so that was something that we could bond over. So we matched, we agreed to go on a coffee date on the same day that I had plans to go paddleboarding with my friends in Sausalito that morning. So it was a pretty exhausting day, oh my goodness. So I scheduled the coffee date way later in the day, so I had enough time to kind of change, get ready, do all of that. So him and I really hit it off. I was very surprised because I'm not gonna lie, I went into this date feeling a little bit negative because I was afraid I was gonna be so tired from paddleboarding. And it was actually really fun. So we closed the coffee shop down, and then we went to the bar across the street because they were playing the Kentucky-Florida football game. We caught the ending of it and sadly watched Kentucky lose. And then I realized, oh my God, I have to eat because I was still on contest prep. I have to eat every 2.5 hours. I didn't have my meal with me. So he said, okay, not a problem. Let's just go to the grocery store, get the ingredients you need for your meal. I live right around the corner and I'll cook it for you. And I'm just thinking to myself, can I marry you? We bought the food and we went back to his place and he cooked it. And then we ended up chatting for another 2 hours and I just didn't want the night to end. I was really enjoying my time with him a lot, actually. And I really liked that he didn't make a first move on me. And I just felt like he really respected me. So we agreed how we had really fun with one another and we wanted to set up a second date. And we decided we wanted to go to a Giants game for our second date. So we set that up, I said goodnight, went home. There wasn't that much communication throughout the week between him and I, but once our baseball date came around, I was very excited about it. We both went on a Tuesday night after work, and we met up at a bar, and then we went to Oracle Park to watch the game. The game was very long. It ended up having 16 innings. So we left at the 11th inning because we were just kind of getting bored and tired. And we realized, oh, we both have to work tomorrow. So we left together in an Uber, and the Uber dropped us off at his place. Then he suggested if I wanted to go up, and I said sure. And then I realized, Ilana, you're not coming back down. So I kind of knew what I was getting myself into after that happened, and it only took about 5 minutes in of me getting into his apartment for us to just kind of play baseball of our own. Things got pretty hot and heavy, and honestly, I'm fanning myself right now because it's literally 90 degrees outside and I don't have air conditioning. I am literally sweating everything out of my body right now whilst I'm filming this video. It got very hot and heavy. I definitely felt the sexual chemistry with him, and he proceeds to show me his bag of, well, stuff. Use your imagination. And the only thing I could think of was, oh my God, can I marry you? Oh my God, I was so excited by this man. Oh my goodness. There's just nothing hotter than a guy owning a bag of stuff. Okay, anyway, so once that was over, we cuddled the whole entire night and we tried to set up a third date, but it didn't really work. A couple of days passed, we didn't talk, so then I reached out to him asking if he wanted to go to Hardly Strictly, which is this bluegrass music festival that's free in Golden Gate Park every October, because I remember he told me he really likes music festivals, and we both lived in Kentucky, so we were used to bluegrass music, so I thought that could be a really fun date idea for the both of us. So I suggested if he wanted to do that, and he said, that sounds really fun, but I'm moving that weekend, and I said, oh, bummer, then I guess we can do something else. And honestly, this is kind of where I went wrong, because I never followed up with him. But to be fair, he never really reached out to me after that either. So the biggest thing that I learned from this, because that was basically the end of the relationship, it just fizzled out really quickly, is that if someone's not putting an effort to communicate with you, are they even really that interested? No, probably not. And then another thing that I learned is to stop mutual opt-outs. If you really like a person and you haven't heard from them in a while, just reach out and kind of see where their head's at. And if they tell you, no thanks, I no longer want to see you anymore, then that's something you can accept. But if they're still agreeing to want to meet up with you until they no longer want to meet up with you, then that person is still interested. So if you really do like that person and you really do want to see them again, just reach out. Stop with the mutual opt-outs. I kind of felt like I missed out on a really great guy. That's something I kind of regret. If I were to ever cross paths with him again, I would totally give it another chance, because he was really nice and he really respected me. So I don't really know what happened, but it's over at this point. Second to last guy. So remember when I went speed dating? I made that whole video and I said how I ended up matching with one guy. So we actually went out. Honestly, isn't that much of a story to tell, but basically I found out he was a lot older than me. He was 42 years old and I was just kind of taken aback. I'm only 28, so I felt a little weird dating somebody that much older than me. So we met at an espresso shop in North Beach. We both took an espresso shot and then we left. And then we went to Tony's Pizza for dinner. Basically, I was just kind of feeling really uncomfortable throughout the whole entire date. I felt absolutely no connection with him like I thought I was going to. I realized I wasn't really that attracted to him like I thought I was. And part of me just felt really uncomfortable. I thought I was feeling uncomfortable because I was on a date with a 42-year-old man, but to be honest with you, that really wasn't it. I just simply was on a date with someone who I absolutely felt like I had nothing in common with, and I just wanted the date to be over, but hey, at least I got free pizza out of it. So the biggest thing that I kind of learned from this was, I don't think age actually really matters, because as long as you are attracted to the person and you have a deep connection with him, who are we to judge? I don't know if I would want to date someone who's that much older than me unless if they're really freaking awesome. I do have my age preferences set for 1 year below me and then 4 years above me. To me, that just makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, but if I did meet somebody outside my age preferences, I'm sure that would change. Yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing that I learned from that, and we agreed that we were not right for each other, and that was that, but he was nice, and I'm glad I ended things with him on good terms. So let's go on to the last guy. I know y'all are dying to know this story, so here we go. Okay, I'm like nervous to talk about this, but I'm so hot. Okay, so this is the guy that I made a whole video about the ending of this relationship. I want you to watch that video. It'll be up here for you to watch, and you will understand why I became so hurt from this situation. But first, I want you to know what the relationship was like. I remember a couple of days after I had gotten settled back into San Francisco, last week of March, I matched with him on Hinge, and we immediately agreed to go out on a date the next day. So I made the first move on him. I replied back to one of his prompts, and it didn't take that long for him to notice and reply back to me. We chatted on the app for about an hour, and then we exchanged numbers and agreed to get Mexican to go and then take it to the park. I remember remember I was waiting outside of the restaurant for him. He was running a little bit late because he went to the wrong location by accident. So I didn't wait that long. He only kept me about 10 or 15 minutes waiting. It wasn't that big of a deal, and he immediately apologized for it. So the second he arrives and he opens his mouth, oh my goodness, all I hear is this sexy Australian accent. So I asked him, "Are you Australian?" And he goes, "Yeah, wow, that's really great. I know my accents and I'm kind of obsessed with Australia." That just made me even more excited to be on a date with him, knowing that I was on a date with an Australian guy. So that was pretty cool. The date was really nice. We sat at the park for about 2.5 hours chatting. We kind of talked about intentions, our values, things we like to do. We talked about COVID and how we were dealing with quarantine and everything like that. And we agreed that we just wanted to see each other again. Now, I will say, when we were talking about intentions, he told me he didn't really know what his intentions were yet, and he had only been single for 3 months. Now, typically, if I find out that a guy is just recently single, I don't ever give him the time of day, because I'm looking for men who have been single for at least 1.5 years and are ready for a serious relationship. But the reason I decided to continue on with him was because he was very nice and he was a really interesting person, and I realized it's quarantine right now. I'm not really in a rush to get into a relationship because COVID is making dating harder than it is now. So I thought to myself, I could actually be open to something casual for now. Let's see what happens. I will say, after the first date, he actually did a great job communicating with me. He was very consistent. He would check in on me maybe every other day, and he kind of did more of the initiating the conversations within the first 2 weeks of us seeing each other. So for our second date, we decided to have a video call. After this video call where we had a long, deep conversation, I was really starting to feel it with him, and I knew that I wanted to see him again. So he asked me out for a third date, and we went on a social distance walk around the park, and it was a very lovely date. We had a very good time. And I remember when I said goodbye to him, it was really awkward because I really wanted to kiss him, and I felt like I couldn't because COVID wouldn't let you touch people. I felt like I couldn't even hug him. It was so awkward. But I communicated to him that I really wanted to kiss him, and he basically told me that he wanted to do that too. So it was pretty awkward goodbye. That's just basically where things really took off from here. We spent a ton of time video calling one another. We went on a couple more in-person dates. We would have Netflix party dates. Things were really going well. I felt very respected by him. I really liked how he treated me. He really excited me. He was very supportive of my YouTube channel. He always wanted to know what my next video was going to be about. He was very supportive of me being a bikini competitor, having a strict diet, having to devote half of my life to competing. He was very understanding about it all. He was very curious to learn more about it. He would ask me a bunch of questions. He wanted to be very involved with my life, and I loved that. I loved that he really was interested in me, or interested in my life, and wanted to know more about it. He was also there for me when I got laid off from my job, and he said, "Well, let me know if you want to chat, to vent." So I called him later when he got off work on just how I was feeling, just how I was decompressing with everything. That felt really nice. Those are things that I need and want from a person. I was just very excited by him. For every single video date or in-person date that we had, I always looked forward to. We did kiss within a 1.5 months of dating. I know. I'm a bad person for breaking the rules and how I could have contracted COVID. I just couldn't take it anymore because my feelings for him were really getting stronger and they were intensifying. I just couldn't keep waiting to not kiss him. So we did end up doing that, but we never slept with one another. We had one conversation where we revisited intentions again, and that is basically where we decided to keep things casual. I understood his situation. He told me everything about his life in more detail, and that's just kind of how we defined our relationship in a way. But I was really excited to see me in a casual relationship and to see what it could be. I was kind of excited by it. No pressure or anything like that. But then 2 weeks later, he decided to end it with me because he ended up not feeling like a spark with me at all. And that really hurt. I go into more detail about my hurt and kind of how I got over that breakup. And again, you can watch it after this video, but now that will kind of explain why I was very hurt by this guy, just because when you think you're on the same page about feelings with one another. Turns out you're not. But let me talk about the biggest things that I learned from this guy. I learned to never be afraid to be honest and to communicate, because there were times where I did have to communicate things that were bothering me. I was able to do it very calm and maturely, and he was very receptive to that. He was very understanding, and he would always say, "Thanks for letting me know." That was really great. I just felt very comfortable around him. You will know if you're able to comfortably be honest and communicate all of your feelings with somebody, that's a good person. So I had this list and an image in my mind of how I wanted to be treated by a guy and what I wanted for them. He checked off all those boxes, and the fact that he checked off those boxes, it really validated that I want that even more in a person, and I really got to appreciate all the things that I've ever wanted in a partner. And I got to experience that from the first time. Shockingly enough, a lot of guys that I've dated in my past have been duds and have not treated with me respect. The fact that this guy actually did the bare minimum, and I know we should never, ever, ever applaud someone for doing the bare minimum, but the thing is, I've never gotten the bare minimum. So for him to give me the bare minimum was really exciting. So that was something that I really liked about him, and something that I really discovered for myself. Finally, I learned how to have a healthy breakup. I learned how to seek clarity of why a relationship could go wrong afterwards and how to handle it a lot more maturely. And now I am doing okay. Months have passed after that situation. I have reactivated my dating apps. It hasn't really been successful for me so far, but I'm still staying hopeful. I know it's very hard out there in San Francisco, and it can get really discouraging at times. But the biggest thing that I want to tell you, if you match with someone on a dating app and you know you want a serious relationship with someone, speak up immediately before you even agree to go out with somebody. Just ask, "Hey, before I agree to anything, can I ask how long you've been single for and what your intentions are?" And if they say that I'm looking for a serious relationship and I've been single for about 1 or 2 years, I think you're good to go. But if you are looking for something casual and they're looking for something casual too, that's cool. But if you guys are looking for 2 different things, don't go on that date and go on to the next person. I promise you, it's gonna save you so much time and heartache. And that is something that I really wish I had done a long time ago. And it's something that I am doing now. And it's gonna help me continue to date smarter even more. I hope you liked this video. If you did like this video and you learned something new from it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!